Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be starting Booklet 2, which is on estimating and making change. Now, there will be some overlap between this booklet and the first one, which will be nice. We're continuing to work with money, but there are a couple of key differences. The main one being that in this unit, in this booklet, you are not going to be using a calculator. All of the adding and subtracting that you need to do in this booklet, you will be doing by hand. So instead of doing lesson 1, we're going to start with lesson 0, where I'm going to do a quick review on how to add and subtract large numbers without using a calculator. As usual, please remember that if you're struggling or need help, to reach out to me in person so that I can make sure that everybody understands how to do these tasks. So let's start with adding whole numbers together. Sometimes they will have decimals, sometimes they will not. Now I provide you a number of steps that you can follow to help you add two large numbers. For example, if we're adding 120 and 355, as you can see below, the first step that you're going to take is write the problem vertically. All right, that means that we write one number on top of the other, but it's important that we line up each place value in decimal. Now in example 1, there is no decimal, so we're just going to line up the place values. And what that means is that our numbers are going to look like this: 120 and 355 on top of each other. Now, please do not be afraid to write large in these examples. You're going to have to cross things out, write on top of them, and if you're writing really small font, it's going to be difficult to see what's going on or what's lining up with one another. You can see here that our ones, our tens, and our hundreds place value are all one on top of another. That's exactly how we want it. So let's fix this up and let's get started on step 2. Now we're adding these two numbers together, so I'm going to write a plus sign to the left and put a line underneath. And step 2 says, add zeros to fill in the empty place values before or after. We don't need to do that here. All of our numbers are in pairs vertically. Everything lines up and has a match. We can skip step 2 for now. Step 3, add each pair of vertical numbers, write the sum below. Start from the rightmost pair and move left. So here is the rightmost pair that I'm circling, the 0 and the 5. We're going to start there, and then we're going to move towards the left. And all you need to do, one at a time, is add. For example, 0 plus 5 gives us 5. I write that below. 2 plus 5 gives us 7. 1 plus 3 gives us 4. So our answer is going to be 475. Now the first question is fairly straightforward because none of these sums were greater than 10. Let's take a look at step 4. Remember, if the sum is greater than 10, carry the 1 to the next addition and only write the second number below. We did not need to do that here, but we will in the next example, so make sure that you're paying attention. Example 2 is 187 plus 62. Let's follow step by step. Step 1, write the problem vertically. 187 plus, let me bring out the right color, 2 seconds. 187 plus 62. Now, don't make the mistake of writing 62 like that. You'll get the wrong answer. The problem with this is that this 2 is in our 1 spot and this 7 is in our 1 spot. Those should be lining up. So please be careful when you set up your question. The 62 should go like this, where the 6 is under the 8 because they're both the 10s, and the 2 is under the 7 because they're both the 1s. Step 2, add zeros to fill in any empty spaces. So we only need to add in 1 0, and that's right here, so that every number has another above or below it. Step 3, add each pair of vertical numbers. Let's start from the right and move left. 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. Good. The hiccup happens when I add 8 and 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. Sorry. Now, 14 is greater than 10. Please do not write 14 below. You'll get the wrong answer. This is where step 4 comes in. Remember, if the sum is greater than 10, carry the 1 to the next sum and write the second number below. So the 14 will look like this. Where the 1 is over here, we're going to use that later, and the 4 from the 14 goes down below. Now let's continue. The last addition that we need is this final column, where we're going to have 1 plus 1 plus 0. So that's just going to be 2. So 187 plus 62 is equal to 249. Now step 5 asks us to bring down the decimal. There has not been a decimal so far, but that will come into play on example 3. This is the hardest of the 3 addition examples, so make sure that you're taking your time and following my instructions. Step 1, write the numbers vertically, lining up the place value and the decimal. We have 100. We have 146.9. And we have 35.87. Please note that the decimals line up vertically, as well as every other place value. The ones are above each other, the tenths, let me put an arrow here. The ones are above each other, the tens, even the tenths are above each other. Step 2. Add zeros to fill in the empty place values. All right? We're going to need 2 zeros, I believe. Oh, I forgot to write that we're adding. Plus. We're going to need 2 zeros, one to fill in this empty slot, and one up here to fill in this empty slot. Step 3. Add each pair of vertical numbers. Write the sum below. Start from the right and move left. So, starting from the right, we have 0 plus 7 is 7. 9 plus 8 is 17. Now remember, don't write 17 below. If the number is over 10, carry the 1 to the next sum and keep the 7 below. Let's continue. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 5 is 12. Again, the 1 carries over, and the 2 is written underneath. Next, 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. Write 8 below. And finally, 1 plus 0 is 1. We also accomplished step 4. Remember what to do when your sum is greater than 10. So now we're on step 5. Bring down the decimal and you are done. So I just write the decimal directly below so that all lines up. 146.9 plus 35.87 is equal to 182.77. This part of the note is the end of our addition practice. If you're still really confused about how to add two numbers by hand, you should be reaching out for help. Let's move on to subtracting two numbers. Again, I give you the step-by-step process that you need. Make sure to follow it closely because subtracting is a little bit trickier than adding. We start off the same way. We're going to write the problem vertically. So let's take a look at one of these examples below. 855 minus 625, making sure to line everything up perfectly. That's step 1. Step 2, fill in the zeros. It starts off the exact same way. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see the instructions at the same time. I don't need to add any zeros. All three columns have two numbers. Step 3. Starting from the rightmost column, moving left, subtract each top number from the bottom. That's important. It's the top number minus the bottom, not the other way around. Again, we're going to start from the right and we're going to move our way to the leftmost column. So, first things first, 5 minus 5 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. And 8 minus 6 is 2. So 855 minus 625 is 230. We did not need to use step 4 in our first example. We will use it in our second example. 182 minus 58. Let me rewrite this so I'm not going over the line. I start off by writing my question vertically. That's step 1. I make sure to line up all of my place values properly. Step 2, fill in the zeros. I need to add 1 0. That's going to be over here underneath the 1. Step 3, starting from the right, moving left, subtract each column. Now, almost immediately we have a problem. And please be careful about this because this is the trickiest part about subtracting. I cannot subtract 8 from 2. That would give me a negative number, and we're going to avoid that. So the problem, again, with this column is that the smaller number is on top. When the smaller number is on top, you need to borrow. And what it means to borrow is the following. This 2 has a problem. it's going to look for help from its neighbor. It's going to borrow from its neighbor so that it can get bigger than the 8 below it. What that looks like is the following. 8 is going to decrease by 1. 8 is going to become 7. Now, when I decrease that number by 1, the 2 is going to go up by 10. The 2 is going to increase all the way to 12. You could write a 1 next to it if you wanted to, but I'm just going to write 12 above. So again, when you borrow, you increase the number that has a problem, R2. You increase the number that has a problem by 10, and you decrease the number on the left by 1. Make sure you practice with that. That's tricky. Now that we've borrowed, let's try again. 12 minus 8. We can do that. 12 is greater than 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. 7 minus 5 is 2. And 1 minus 0 Sorry guys, phone call. And 1 minus 0 is 1. Now let's move on to our final question. This one's going to be the trickiest of the three because it has decimals and we will need to borrow again. So let's get started by lining up the two numbers vertically. 64.51 minus 1.83. Remember to write large, give yourself space. Now, step 2, we're going to fill in the zeros. So I just need to add 1 0 over here. Now follow along because this is going to get a little bit messy. Make sure that you pause the video and go back at any point if you need to double check what I've done. We're going to start with this column right here, 1 minus 3. I cannot subtract those two numbers because the 1 is too small. It's smaller than the 3. So I borrow. I borrow from the 5. It becomes a 4. And this 1 goes up by 10. It's going to become 11. Good. Now I can subtract 11 and 3 to give me 8. Next, we're going to we're going to subtract these numbers right here, the 4 and the 8. Again, we have a problem because the 4 is too small. So I borrow again. This time I borrow from the 4 to the left. It becomes 3. Now I borrow from the 4, it becomes a 3. And then this 4 to the right, that's going to become 14. Now I can subtract 14 and 8, giving me 6. The next column that we're going to subtract is this one right here. No problems with that column. 3 minus 1 is going to give me 2. The final column is 6 minus 0. That's just 6. And finally, I remember to carry down my decimal. So 64.51 minus 1.83 gives me 62.68. That brings us to the end of the lesson. These skills are going to be very important for this booklet, so make sure that you're comfortable with them. Take as long as you need to practice, and ask me if you need any help. The next page in your booklet is all about practice with adding numbers. There is tons of examples, so you have lots of opportunity to practice. There is even some really challenging examples at the end if you're feeling confident. The page after is all about subtracting practice. So this homework has 2 pages, not 1. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.